Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm coming to you completely barefaced because we are going to be doing a full face of glowy makeup. I have a wide selection of products here. A lot of these are going to actually be first impressions, which I've never done a first impressions video on my channel. I mean, I've used an eyeshadow palette for the first time on my channel doing like palette bingos, but I've never done like a full face of mostly first impressions. I do have a selection of items that are newer to me and I have used them, and then I do have a couple older products in my project pans, but very few of them are actually things that are a bit older in my collection. And I've just been so excited to try out some of this new makeup. I was very fortunately sent a selection of this, not all of it, but a selection of it from Look Fantastic, and I am just so excited to try it out. I figured I would do it with you guys, let you see my first impression of all of these products. Now, if you do want to shop through Look Fantastic, I do have a discount code, which is Rebecca20. That is available on the Canadian and on the US site for Look Fantastic, and you get 20% off of a wide selection of the products on their site. Not the full site. There are some exclusions, but everything that I'm going to be sharing with you that's from Look Fantastic is eligible for that discount. And I will annotate on the screen what I did receive in PR and what was from Look Fantastic or otherwise. But I'm just so excited to delve in and start playing with this makeup and try it out for the first time. So let's just hop on into it. I am going to start with my Urban Decay primer. This is not new in any way, shape, or form, but I know this works with pretty much all foundations and concealers in my collection. So I just took a pea-sized amount. I'm running it between my fingers. It doesn't have any sort of like interactions with things, and yes, this is a glowy makeup look. I could have used a illuminating primer of some sort, but I really want to see how the foundation works on its own without a glow underneath of it, you know? I don't want it to be affected by anything else. So the reason I didn't want to use a glowy primer is because I'm going to be trying out the NYX Born to Glow foundation. I hope this shade is good. I haven't swatched it in any way. This is the shade Warm Vanilla, and as you can see, I've not even opened it, so I'm really excited to give this a try. I've heard amazing things about the concealer in this line. I feel like I haven't heard a ton about the foundation, but I was just so curious to give it a try, so I don't know. I've just been loving glowy bases. I haven't been preferring foundations, but I just want to see how this functions. So I just squeezed a little bit onto the back of my hand, and this color does look like it's probably going to be good. So I'm just going to use my finger to kind of dot it onto the face. Yeah, I think this color is going to be good. If anything, I've lost some of my warmth already with the days getting shorter and cooler. I haven't been outside as much. So I'm kind of just spreading it across my face. This is what I tend to do with most of my base products because I don't want the coverage to be too cakey in one spot, and then I can always kind of like target it eventually. And I want to just smooth it out so I can kind of compare. This is like my worst side, so I don't know why I didn't start with this side. I have a lot of little acne spots at the moment, but let's try it out. I'm just using my Eco Tool sponge. Oh my gosh, it blends effortlessly. Like it's already blended. Wow, okay. I do like that so far. So I just brought my mirror a little bit closer. I know you can see it in the corner, but I hope that's not too much of a distraction. But oh my gosh, this looks really nice on the skin. It is not too full coverage in any way, and it is very skin-like. It has a natural glow. It doesn't have any sort of like sparkle or shimmer to it, so definitely could go in with a glowy primer, but we'll see how this performs and acts throughout the rest of the makeup application. So far, I really like that. How about I zoom you in to show you? So I wanted to just zoom you in and turn down the exposure to really show you the difference. So this is what my skin looks like totally bare. Of course, I do have some active acne and then just some texture happening at the moment. And this is it with the foundation. Obviously, this side was not as severe beforehand, but there's a huge difference. You can really just see how it evened out my pigmentation and made everything look smooth, but it still looks like skin. I really like that. I always use a sponge with my base products or my fingers, so I'm just gonna use a sponge because that's how I would use it on my own. I'm not trying to like compare this with different applications. That's just not Not my style. I never really use a brush to apply any base products. So I kind of went in and tried to make sure everything was nice and even all over my face, but it doesn't look cakey in any way. I did use most of what was on the back of my hand. However, I don't think on an everyday basis I would need that much coverage. I just was being a little bit more picky than I usually would be. Just trying to show you guys the full effect and how effective this foundation can be. I'm super impressed by the look of it. I loved the application. It was so easy. And this comes in 45 shades. It comes in a really great shade range, which is super impressive and honestly the way that it always should be. So I mean, I don't know the longevity of it, but on first impression, I really do like it. I'm looking forward to trying it out more and letting you guys know how I feel about that formula because so far, so good. So next up, I have the UOMA Beauty Stay Woke Concealer. I am so excited to try this. I've only heard amazing things about this concealer and the complexion products from this brand in general. I got the shade Fair Lady T3 and it does look maybe a little bit too deep. Oh, I don't know if I should try it. Okay, I'm gonna try just the smallest amount and if it does end up being too deep, I'm gonna have to grab another concealer from my collection, but I'm gonna try it out. It does look deep though. The one thing is the naming conventions of this concealer are really difficult, but there were so many shades available. I don't even know what the shade count was, but UOMA is known for its inclusivity, so there's tons of shades. There's a shade for everyone. So what I'm gonna do, seeing as this isn't like a brightening type of concealer, I'm just gonna pop it where I do have the most darkness under my eyes, which is in that little hollow right there. And then I'll try to blend it out from there. I might be applying too much. It just occurred to me. But let's give it a try anyway. So again, with my sponge, that's just how I prefer applying concealers. I feel like it just blends into my skin so much easier that way. Okay, wow. Yep. That shade is not at all brightening, but it is literally my perfect shade. Just like my skin tone kind of color. Fabulous. I love it. And actually that shade ended up being like basically spot on. It's not brightening, but it is definitely just the perfect shade. So I'm gonna apply this to my lids as well. I'm just going to tap out my lids just to get rid of any like oil. I do have really oily lids, so just trying to get rid of a little bit of the oil buildup. And then I'm just gonna put a small little dollop of this on. And I'm using this brush. This one's from Luxie. This is not new in any way. This is the Detailed Angled Blender. I think this is actually for like nose contour, but I love this brush for this exact reason. I'm just gonna tap it into place. We'll see how this primes the lids. And because my eyes are hooded, I do always have to kind of just like press everything in one more time before I set it down. I'm just gonna use a shadow from my Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye palette just to make sure I don't get any sort of creasing and to really set that before I go in with any sort of shadow, I guess. I don't know why I was trailing off in that sentence. I kind of want to see how powder products just perform right on top of this, like powder-based products. So I'm just going to use my Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer just to warm up my skin and to use sort of as a guide for where I'm going to put my blush and highlight as well. I really like placing my bronzer actually up on the top of my cheekbones, not so much farther down. I feel like if I bring it down, it kind of brings down my face, but this is also where the sun would actually hit me. So I like to keep it up on the top of the cheekbones and then up on the hairline. And then I'm just gonna swoop it kind of across. I do have a cream blush or like a liquid blush that I'm gonna try. Kind of risky potentially to put this on top, but I don't know. I just feel like I have to do it in this order. I have to do blush after bronzer typically, because I feel like I said, bronzer makes a really good guide, and then I can see how much color I actually want to add to my face, because I just prefer to be bronzed over blushed. And then I'm just going to bring whatever's left on the brush across here, and then a little bit on my nose. and that foundation seemed to have no issue with powder being applied directly on top of it. It may have lifted a little bit where I have my most active acne, but not anything too severe, and it blended fantastically. Like, the powder blended amazingly on top of it without being set. So as I said, I have a new blush to try out. I've not heard anyone talk about this blush, but when I saw it on Look Fantastic, I was kind of like, I need to try that out. This is the Ciate London Dewy Blush Glossy Cheek Tint. How delicious does that sound? And this came in, I think, 4 or 5 different shades. There was a good range, but I got, of course, you know, the most basic kind of color. This one is in the shade Coconut. I just love these like brownie based blush shades that are just my favorite. They're just what I feel like really flatters me and flatters my personal style as well. Okay, so I just applied a little bit to the back of my hand, and we're gonna try this out on here. It kind of feels like a lip balm. It's really, I think it might be quite dewy. Like, it's very slick, very slippery. How about ooh, it smells good too. How about I just go for it? I'm just gonna apply it onto the cheeks. Oh, it seems like it's shearing out a lot. It's, how do I describe this? It's not really a lot of pigment. Now, I didn't choose a very pigmented kind of shade or like a very like amplified saturated shade. I did choose something that would be very minimal on my skin, but there definitely isn't a ton of pigment. Like you saw when I first applied it in the dollop, it had a lot more pigment than it does now. Kinda sticky. So I don't know how I feel about this yet, not gonna lie. It smells really good and it's easy to apply. Like, it's pretty foolproof. I don't see any issues with it being overly pigmented, hard to blend. Like, this is so easy. I thought I was gonna have to use my sponge to apply this, and I'm just using literally my finger. I'm building it up and it seems to just be no issue to build up at all. I think I'm just gonna press it into the skin a little bit more. Actually, yeah, going in with my sponge was really good. It kind of took away that slick look. I mean, it's meant to be a dewy blush. I don't know. I think I want to just try to build a tiny little bit more on it because it basically blended away to nothing. And I'm going to use my sponge to apply the second layer on. So I have a decent amount on the back of my sponge, and I'm just going to pop it onto like the apples of my cheeks. Yeah, I got a little bit more pigment blending it in that way. As you can see, it really does reflect the light and it's very glowy, but it feels like how it looks. Like, it hasn't set down, but I do really, really like that effect. It does kind of feel like the type of highlighter that your hair might get stuck in, but we'll see. As the look progresses, we'll see if it kind of sets down. But for now, it does have a little bit of that sticky feeling to it, but I don't dislike it. I just don't think I'm as impressed by it as I was maybe anticipating that I would be. And for my highlight, I'm gonna be using this little palette right here. This is the Shared Planet Sea Turtle highlighting palette. This is so fun. This contains 5 highlighting shades. Obviously, they're quite vibrant, some of them, but they do perform really well as eyeshadows in addition to being fun, unique highlighters. But I'm just gonna use this shade right here called White Sands. I don't really want to take away from the natural look of what I have going on right now. So White Sands I'm gonna go into. This is not a first impression. I've used this several times and I really do like the way that this looks. So I'm just kind of like working it into my brush. I'm kind of nervous to see how it might interact with that blush, but I'm just gonna pop it right on the very tip top of my cheekbone. As you can see, it offers so much shine. I'm gonna take it just kind of between my eyes as well right here. And I think I wanna pop it right here just to amplify the glowy look we're going for, just right above the arch of my brow. So why don't we actually just go into the eyes right now, because I do want to use one of these shades as an eyeshadow. I want to use this shade right here called Lagoon, which is a beautiful like minty green kind of shade. And I'm just going to pop this on with my ring finger onto my lid. Look how pretty. It's such a gorgeous shade, and because it's meant to be a highlighter, it's not super pigmented, which I think goes really well with this type of look. And I don't know how these colors are going to necessarily blend together, but I think I'm going to go in with Sunkissed, which is that gorgeous bronzy one. And I'm just going to put it onto a blending brush and kind of blend it in the outer portion of my lid. Yeah, that bit of warmth is quite nice. I'm actually going to take it a little bit farther into my lid and make it so that it's almost like a gradient between the two. I could definitely leave this as a wash of just like glowy shimmer, but I'm going to go in and amplify this just a little bit. This is definitely optional, but I'm going to go into my Melt Smoke Sessions palette. You guys know that I've been loving this, and I'm going to use the shade Blue Dream right here and just top off that highlighter with this using my finger again. And then I'm just hopping back into this palette, and I'm going to use Lagoon on the inner corner of my eye. So I haven't set under my eyes yet, and usually I don't wait this long, but this doesn't look like, I didn't put a ton of concealer on, but it doesn't look like too bad. But I am just going to tap out the tiny little bit of crease that I have underneath my eyes, and I'm just going to use my e.l.f. Soft Luminance powder. This is in my Roulette Pan collab. I'm just going to pour a tiny bit into the lid and then just use my sponge to set. And I'm going to try to not really get it on that blush because I'm kind of nervous, but inevitably I will get a little bit on top of that blush. Actually, I kind of got it right on top of the blush there, and the blush has like disappeared. What? I kind of feel like I should just try to build this up over top of the powder, because where I applied that e.l.f. powder, which does have a little bit of pigment, but not a ton, it seems like the blush has totally disappeared. And I really want to make this work. I want to figure out a way to make this work for me. So I think I'm going to just go into it again. Again, just a very small amount, and just yeah, like a really, really small amount. And then I'm just going to use my ring finger. I want to keep this concentrated right here. So there is powder on that part of my face, and it doesn't seem to be an issue applying this on top. So maybe what I would do instead next time is set my under eye concealer and then go in with this, because it totally disappeared using the powder on it, but it seems to be not having any sort of issue at all interacting with that. And I just want to blend it out a bit with the sponge. I'm actually really liking the way that this is looking now as opposed to how it did before I had everything else on. I don't know why. Like, something about how it's interacting with that powder is actually really, really beneficial. I feel like it has much more pigment, and I don't know how to describe it. I just feel like it looks much more uniform than it did before. It didn't look patchy before, but there's something about it, it just like meshes really well with everything else on my face, I suppose. Seeing it as like a whole picture, I'm liking it more and more. And next up, this isn't a first impression, but this was sent to me from Look Fantastic. This is the Pixi Glow Mist. This was my first ever time trying this. I've now used it a handful of times since I got it from them, because this I just have been so curious about. But I am gonna just spray this all over my face to, again, set everything in, but to amplify the glow. We're really going for all the glow today. The sprayer on that is so good. I can now see, honestly, why people rave about this and why this has been a cult favorite for so long. I can't believe it's taken me forever to try out this product. I feel so weird without my brows on, so let's do my brows next. And I'm gonna be trying out a brow gel. This one is by QUO, which I believe is only available here in Canada. It's a Shoppers Drug Mart brand, but they've recently rebranded and everything in the line looks so pretty. Like I get like Glossier meets Milk makeup kind of vibes from the brand. They have like cooling sticks, they have like tubes of, you know, dewy and liquid blushes. It just looks so good, but I don't need a ton of new makeup, but I wanted to try a couple things from the brand now that they've rebranded and everything is vegan in the line, I believe as well. And I mean, I can't go wrong with a brow gel. I just feel like I love brow gels recently for my brows. It's really all I need in my brows. And I picked this one up. This is the Brow Defining Gel. This is in the shade Ash 74. This may be a little bit deep, but everything else based on the tube looked kind of warm for my preferences. But anyways, let's give it a try. So let's see, I have not opened this up and there was no display one, so I have no idea. Yes, I love it. I love this tiny little brush. Okay, this is promising. I'm really excited for this. So I'm just going to make sure my wand gets coated, but not too heavily coated. And let's give this a try. Let's see how this goes. So I'm just gonna go very lightly through, not quite the front of my brow. I usually like to start kind of in the middle. But yeah, the shade might be a little bit too deep. Ooh, I like this. I think this brush is really, really nice. And it seems to be allowing me to kind of control where the hairs actually lay. We'll see about hold eventually, but for now, I really like that. Look how well it defined my brow. I really like the way that that looks. Let's try it on my brow that is always troublesome, never wants to cooperate. Let's see how it goes. I'm very impressed with the way that this made my brows look and the control that I had and everything about this. I'm super, super impressed. This doesn't seem to have any sort of like fibers in it, but it has a really decent amount of pigmentation, not too much where you lose control, but definitely enough to give some shape and definition to the brows. Now this is $14 Canadian. I did purchase this myself. $14 is kind of expensive for this sort of item in comparison to other drugstore offerings like ColourPop, e.l.f., and Essence, but it's definitely far less expensive than some of the higher end versions, which I will never ever again buy a high-end brow gel because I had the Milk Kush for quite some time and it was good, but I don't see a massive difference between that and something like this, so really happy with that. I really love the way it looks, but I do look kind of weird without any lashes right now. Like once I have defined brows, I need to have some defined lashes. And I actually was sent some lash curlers from Look Fantastic, which I'm gonna try out with you guys because I broke my lash curlers like a year and a half ago. And recently I have been kind of missing having lash curlers in my life. I've been noticing on the outer corners, my lashes seem to droop a little bit. So we're gonna try these out, see how these work. These ones are by Tweezerman. I'll put all the information on the screen because I don't remember which exact ones these are. And yeah, let's give it a try. We'll see how they go. I have quite small eyes, hooded eyes, so I do struggle with some lash curlers, but we'll see how this one works out for me. I feel like that's gonna really help to open up my eyes. I can see a huge difference from my right eye to my left eye. I kind of forgot about the beauty of lash curlers. Mine broke and I just was like, yeah, not essential, but it definitely does make a difference. I can see it already. And I do have a mascara that I want to try out with you guys as well. This one I did purchase actually a few months ago and I haven't opened it because shortly after I purchased it, I ended up getting the Charlotte Tilbury mystery box and I got a mascara in that I was just way too excited to try out. So I hadn't opened this yet and this is impossible to get into. And I am still working on that Charlotte Tilbury mascara, but I love trying out new mascaras. And I know a lot of people like to only have like one open at a time. I'm not that way. I love to have multiples open. I like some selection. So this is what it looks like. This is the Mineral Fusion Volumizing Mascara. It's just like a standard mascara tube. I've not heard anything about this, but I saw it on sale on well.ca and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. Why not? So let's see, what's the wand even look like? It's just like a standard looking wand as well. I don't always like mascara on first impressions. It usually takes me a few times to warm up to a mascara because I like to wait for it to kind of dry out a little bit to thicken, and sometimes it can be quite runny on first impression, but let's see how this works. This one is targeted to volume, which I tend to prefer length, but I've just been trying to branch out and try new mascaras recently because I haven't found one that I absolutely am diehard in love with. Okay, so this is not too runny at all. In fact, it's kind of dry, not in a bad way, just in a notable way. I've got one coat on and it is not offering me as much like rich color or volume as I'd like, but we can always continue to build it up. So that's what one coat on this side looks like. As you can see, it's not quite as dramatic as I might like it to be, but it definitely is bringing a lot of attention to my eyes, and that's important for sure. I'm gonna try to build it up on that eye as well. I wanna be able to compare the two sides. I like that it's kind of dry, so I can kind of just continually build it up, and it's keeping my lashes really, really separated. I find a lot of other formulas, they tend to clump up my lashes. So I have built that up quite a bit at this point, and it's not gonna give me like super impactful lashes based on what I'm seeing, but I really do like the way that it made my lashes look. It's a bit of a softer lash look for my personal taste, or like my typical kind of look, but with this sort of situation that I have going on with a very light wash of color on my eyes, not super dramatic makeup in any way, I kind of think it looks really good. And I do want to put a little bit on my lower lashes. I just tend to prefer that look for me personally, but what I'm going to do is keep the brush on its side and just kind of hover it over my lower lashes. I will have to leave in the description box how this kind of plays out for me because I do have hooded eyes, like you can clearly see. And I tend to find a lot of mascara formulas do transfer up onto my lid, so I will keep you guys updated in the description box how this plays out, or maybe, maybe I will just do a little insert at the end of this video and share with you guys how everything held up. I have one last product I'm going to be trying out today, which is also from the QUO line. I just couldn't resist when I saw the full new selection, and I don't need any more lip products, but I thought it's a good way to complete an almost full face of new makeup. So this is the QUO Velvet Kiss Liquid Lipstick. It does say to shake well before each use, so I'm going to shake it. It might be actually like a more liquefied lip. I don't know. This is in the shade Soft Linen. On the package, it looks really beautiful, but let's take a look together, see what this is gonna actually be like. I'm just going right into it, I'm too excited. It is a very thin liquid lip formula. Like, it is liquid lip. This is not moussey or creamy. This is actually just like liquid pigment. And I feel like I have a lot of control with this little applicator too. It does seem to have set down actually really well, but I just realized that my lips are not even. So we're gonna try to see how this builds up. I just need to even out this lip. This side of my lip, rather. And I definitely did kind of overline my lips in this look. Didn't really intend to, So the full face is on and I really like the way that everything came together. I'm super impressed by all the formulas that I did decide to try out today on first impressions. However, I wish I had anticipated this a little bit earlier, but I have decided I do want to actually do a couple check-ins with you guys throughout the day to share with you what the foundation ends up looking like, concealer, the brows, the mascara, the lip, basically everything on my face. I want to share with you how everything interacted over the next few hours. Right now it is 11:39, it's 20 to 12. The foundation itself has probably been on for maybe 40 minutes already, but we'll just use that as the initial check-in time, 11:39, and then in a few hours time I want to share with you guys how it is holding up as well. So it's now 10 after 2, so I've had this on for about 2.5 hours. Now I haven't done anything intensive. I did have a piece of cake before I sat down and watched a lecture for 2 hours, so nothing super intensive. My skin didn't seem to get at all really worn. The lip seems to look even good after drinking a lot of water throughout the class and eating that piece of cake. Like I said, I'm about to eat some noodles though, so I want to show you how everything looked before I decide to eat the noodles, because it definitely is going to mess up the lip. Everything's holding up really, really well though, including the mascara. No issues with it flaking or transferring yet. The foundation still looks amazing. The concealer looks so, so good. And the lip, I can definitely feel it. It's not the most comfortable, but it's not the most uncomfortable either. And it definitely doesn't look like cracky, or I don't have like a weird ring. Well, maybe a little bit of a ring, but nothing too significant. I think after I eat, I may pop on a lip gloss just to make this feel a little bit more comfortable, but we'll see. It's now nearly 10 to 5. I've had this makeup on for about 5 hours now, and I'm getting a little warm because I just walked to and from the grocery store, and I did have a mask on. I wanted to share with you what the inside of my mask looks like. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's definitely a bit of foundation and lipstick inside of there. I don't fault the makeup for that at all, because makeup was not formulated to wear underneath the fabric. And Kendrick is rubbing up against the grocery bag. I haven't yet put away the groceries. He knows there's new food for him in there. That's so funny. What are you doing, bud? We now interrupt our usual programming. Kendrick knows that that bag right there is his new food. So after that interruption, let's get back on into how the makeup is holding up. As you can see, the lipstick is a little smudged. That's because I had it under a mask, but I didn't end up reapplying my lipstick in any way. Kendrick, stop! I didn't end up reapplying my lipstick. I didn't end up putting on a lip gloss either. I just wanted to leave it exactly as it was. And like I said, I ate noodles, I drank water all day long, and no problem with the lipstick. I think it actually looks better now than it did when I checked in at 2-ish. And it's actually really, really comfortable now. After kind of sweating a little bit of my mask, it feels really quite nice on the lips, very comfortable. But the mascara I am having an issue with. You can see right there, it is smudging, but it's easy enough to kind of just rub it off. I noticed it had smudged before I went to the grocery store, and I intentionally didn't touch it up because I wanted to share with you how everything looked after the grocery store. At least I don't have like major raccoon eyes happening under my eyes. And otherwise, I am in love with this foundation. I think my skin just looks so healthy, and it looks evened out, but it doesn't look like artificial or cakey. It actually looks really good, and it held up really well with my forehead lines. Like, I find it didn't really fall into those lines that severely. There's a little bit, but that's just the shape of my face, to be honest. And it did fall a tiny bit into my smile lines, but with a little tap, usually I can just work those out, no problem. So I just put away all the groceries, and although it has only been about 5 hours since I put on this makeup, I figured I would come and sit down and kind of wrap everything up. My lifestyle doesn't really seem to suit longer term makeup wear these days, so I didn't go into this video with the intentions of it being a wear test video. But I do think it's nice to come back and share with you some more thorough thoughts after a day of wear. For me, 5 hours of wear is kind of my standard these days. I don't tend to wear my makeup for much longer than that because I work from home, I study from home, I live and breathe in this apartment, and every once in a while I do go out for a walk or go to the grocery store or, you know, go out for a drive, but realistically I spend most of my time here, so makeup longevity just doesn't really matter for me all that much. So yeah, let's talk about some of the products I tried out for the first time today. The first one being the NYX Born to Glow foundation. I gotta say, I'm really super impressed. Of course, I do need to try this a little bit longer than one day to have like full thoughts on it, but as you can see, my skin looks radiant without looking like artificially radiant, and I feel like it just looks really healthy. It has definitely a little bit of shine after 5 hours of wear and after having my mask on, but for the most part it looks very skin-like and I'm super happy with it. The shade Warm Vanilla was absolutely perfect for me, like perfect, spot on. So impressed with this. I feel like my skin looks very lifelike and natural, but very perfected at the same time. The next product is the UOMA Beauty Concealer. This is the Stay Woke Concealer, and this one is in the shade Fair Lady T3. As you saw, I was a little bit nervous about the shade, but we looked at it in sunlight today earlier, or like in natural daylight, and you can tell it is not a bad shade match for me whatsoever. In fact, it is very much my skin tone. It's funny because I look at the foundation and it looks very yellow, and then this looks actually quite beigey in comparison, but it seems to like sit on the skin very well. It seemed to cancel out any sort of darkness under my eyes. There still is a little bit of that darkness coming through, but that's because I wasn't able to really build this up. I was worried about the shade, and it actually worked really, really well as an eyeshadow primer as well. Like there is a tiny bit of creasing, but that happens for me every single time I put on makeup, that little crease right there. So not an issue whatsoever. I'm really happy with this. And this Ciate Dewy blush, I actually didn't really like on first application, probably because it just wasn't really what I was anticipating it to be. But thinking that it is marketed as a sheer dewy blush, it definitely does fit the bill exactly. And surprisingly, without having touched it up and having worn a mask, it's held up very well. It's held up impeccably well. I feel like on camera, it may look a little bit patchy, but in person, I don't see any sort of issues whatsoever. It's sheared out a little bit throughout the day. I was kind of like sitting like this when I was watching my lecture, and I, you know, touched my face and I put on a mask, but overall, I'm super impressed with how it's held up. It still has that sticky feeling, like it kind of feels a little bit like you're wearing a lip gloss on your cheeks. So that is something to be wary of, but I actually super like the way that it looks. And I walked to the grocery store, it was a little bit windy out, no issues with my hair getting stuck in my cheeks, which is something that I was kind of thinking might happen since it does have that lip gloss sort of feeling, but no issues whatsoever. And then next up, let's talk about both the QUO products. The first one is the Brow Defining Gel. My brows still look perfectly in place. I am so impressed with this. I think this may be a new favorite of mine. I'm sure you can't even tell, but the hairs here, like at my arch, I always kind of pull them to like be the same direction and to all go in the shape of my arch to kind of emphasize my arch a little bit. And with the e.l.f. Wow Brow, sometimes I do find that my brows will start to settle down and they'll all start to pull down and my arch is not quite as apparent. But with this, my brow stayed perfectly in place all day. Even this one, even my brow that is kind of troublesome, seems to have held up very well, and the arch looks nice and defined still. And then the lip, I don't love liquid lips, so I'm not really too sure why I felt compelled to pick this up, to be entirely honest with you, but when it comes to a liquid lip formula, this is actually extremely comfortable, and I'm really, really happy with the way that it feels and the application of it, everything about it. And lastly, we have the Mineral Fusion Volumizing Mascara. This, I can't say is an absolute favorite. It is going to take some time for me to really get to know the formula and to feel out the formula, but I do like the result that I got. I did have a little bit of transfer, however, my hooded oily eyes are really temperamental when it comes to mascara, and a lot of formulas do tend to transfer up there, so I've come to realize it's just easy enough to kind of flick things away, no problem, it's gone. And this was nice because that pigment didn't sit there, it just did flick away when I tried to remove it, so I'm not unimpressed by it, but it doesn't really leave like an amazing first impression on me. I feel like I've tried other formulas that I much preferred on first impression, and this was a little bit lackluster, but I will keep you updated as I use it in the coming months. I know this is not the typical type of content that I share on my channel, but let me know if you did enjoy hearing some first impressions on new to me products, as well as an impromptu little wear test. Let me know what you thought about it all. I really did enjoy doing it, and I hope that it's something that you guys receive well and that you're interested in seeing maybe a little bit more frequently from me. Definitely not often, but every once in a while I would like to do this kind of video for you. It was so much fun for me, but that is absolutely everything for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!